Hello and welcome back to the channel. Today we are going over all of the big score spoilers, all the combos, infinite combos, synergies that we got from this sort of expansion in Outlaws of Thunder Junction. And starting off, we've got Simulacrum Synthesizer, 3 mana for an artifact. When it enters the battlefield, scry 2. And whenever another artifact with mana value 3 or greater enters the battlefield under your control, create a 0/0 colorless construct artifact creature token with it gets +1/+1 for each artifact you control. So a lot of these cards are going to synergize with artifacts, as you'll find out. In standard, we've got Brass Knuckles, which is kind of nice. That puts 2 4-mana artifacts into play. So you could curve that into that and then get 2 constructs. We also have Skitterbeam Battalion, which would get, I believe, that counts the mana cost of the copies here. So you would get 3 additional construct tokens if you cast the Skitterbeam Battalion, even for prototype. So those are pretty nice standard options. In older formats, you got Affinity, so maybe just sort of playing this, and then right away playing Frogmite and other like Mirror Enforcer, different affinity cards to get more constructs that could generate a lot of value pretty quickly. So I think this card actually has some potential. It's a little slow, 3 mana come into play, do nothing, but then it can really pay you off by creating a lot of tokens throughout the game. So we'll kind of see how this one plays out. Next up, we got Lotus Ring, which is 3 mana equipment. Indestructible. Equipped creature gets +3/+3 and has vigilance, and taps, sacrifice this creature. Add 3 mana of any one color. Equip is 3. So anything that sort of cheats on equip costs is pretty good with this. And standard, we've got Astor, which could both search it up and allow you to equip it for 1. So essentially, it would let you sacrifice all the creatures you have in play for +2 mana of any color, which could be a huge mana burst for some sort of combo deck. Piercer Paladin in older formats would let you equip for free, so it would essentially turn all your creatures that you have into play into 3 mana. So that could be a ton of mana as well. And we also have an infinite combo. I think this is legal in Explorer as well as older formats. Fervent Champion and Cole, the Forge Master. Fervent Champion allows you to equip it for free because it reduced the activation cost. And then Cole says when the equipped creature dies, you return it back to its hand. So you could have infinite mana on turn 3 by going turn 1 Fervent Champion, turn 2 Cole, turn 3 play the ring, equip it to the Fervent Champion, sacrifice it, add 3 red. It would return back to your hand, play the Fervent Champion, equip it, tap. Because it has haste, you can keep tapping it. Add 3 red or any other color, and basically just continue that loop. Get infinite mana. This is infinite come into play triggers, infinite death triggers. So there's lots of ways you could convert that into a kill, but kind of a nice 3-card combo for infinite mana there. All right, next up we've got Loot, the key to everything. Very cute loot. This Beast Noble Legendary 1/2 with Ward 1. At the beginning of your upkeep, exile the top X cards of your library. X is the number of card types among other non-land permanents you control. You may play those cards this turn. So when I thought about this card, I thought, well, we got this new Obika, which wants you to have additional upkeep, so that could work with this guy because he triggers every time on your upkeep. And he also triggers with any sort of card types you want. It's many different card types. So on turn 1, you could play an artifact. Turn 2, you could play a battle, for example, which is a new card type. And then himself is a creature. And then the following turn, you would essentially get 3 additional cards. It also works with a lot of the cards in this next slide here, because we've got another new card, Memory Vessel, which does similar things, which 5 mana artifact, tap and exile it. Each player exiles the top 7 cards of their library until your next turn. Players may play cards they exiled this way, and they can't play cards from their hand. Activate only as a sorcery. So we've got this new card, Dock, Arlock, which reduces the cost of cards played from exile. And so both Memory Vessel and Loot they exile the cards from the top of your library and let you play them from exile. So anything that reduces the cost with Dock or PNLR lets you get a Doctor token every time you play something from exile. Rocco is pretty good with the memory vessel in particular because it triggers whenever any player plays something from exile. So if you had Rocco in play and you had memory vessel and then you activated the next turn, it would trigger quite a bit. So some synergy there. It's a bit slow. The memory vessel in particular is 5 mana, but 7 cards. You never know how that could work out in a combo deck. And Dock gives the potential to reduce every single one of those cards by 2 mana. So that could be a big turn. We also got the Esoteric Duplicator. Whenever you sacrifice Esoteric Duplicator or another artifact, you can pay 2 if you do at the beginning of your end step. Next end step, create a token that's a copy of the artifact. You can pay 2 to sacrifice it and draw a card. It's a clue artifact. And this has a few infinite combos. One is with Ugin's Nexus, and you need a way to sacrifice the Nexus and 2 additional mana because you need the 2 mana to create a copy of it. But if you have those 2 in play and a way to sacrifice it, you can go to your end step and then sacrifice the Ugin's Nexus, which will trigger to get you another turn, pay the 2 mana to create the copy, which would then create that copy at the beginning of your next turn's end step, because you can't have it in play when you're taking the next turn, but you won't be in play. So you can take your next turn, and then it'll create the copy in that next turn's end step, and then you can sacrifice it again, pay the 2, and then keep going with that for infinite turns. Mindslaver is possibly even a better way, a little bit more mana, but because it sacrifices itself, you can just continually sacrifice it, pay the 2, make a copy of it, take your opponent's turn, do whatever you want, and then pass the turn back to yourself, sacrifice it, pay the 2, get the copy, and keep going from there. So some nice infinite combo potential with this card. A bit clunky. It's a lot of mana. Maybe like in a Tron deck that these could work. Not sure, but definitely some combo potential here. All right, we've got Molten Duplication, which is a 2 mana sorcery. Create a token that's a copy of target artifact or creature you control, except it's an artifact in addition to its other types. It gains haste until end of turn. Sacrifice it at the beginning of next end step. So I thought Trumpeting Carnosaur decks might want this because you can discover into this and then create another copy of the Carnosaur, which would then discover again. And then if this was the only card you had that costs 5 or less in your deck, you would play the Carnosaur and then get, if you had 4 of these left in the deck, you get 4 hasty Carnosaurs, which would be more than enough damage to kill your opponent. So you could design a deck in that way. And so you could design a deck that has Molten Duplication as the only target for Carnosaur, and that would guarantee you get 4 hasty Carnosaurs. So the other thing you could do with Molten Duplication is there's this kind of 3-card combo of the new Girid and Dominating Vampire, and if you create a token copy of the Dominating Vampire on that turn, you can go infinite with that. So you could use this in that combo as well to go infinite. If you don't know how that works, if you have Girid and Dominating Vampire in play, you could cast Molten Duplication on the vampire. That would create a second vampire, and then use Tap the Girid to create a third vampire, which could then come into play and untap the Girid, which can then tap again to make another vampire, which can come into play to untap the Girid, and so you can go infinite that way. All right. Next up, we've got Collector's Cage. This is a very powerful one. I think this is going to definitely see play. 2 mana artifact, Hideaway 5. So you look at the top 5 cards, exile 1 of them face down, and then tap 1 to put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control. And then if you control 3 or more creatures with different powers, you can play the exiled card without paying its mana cost. What a line of text that breaks a lot of things in Magic. So this card is definitely noteworthy. It's almost kind of like fight rigging, but for token decks, because you want 3 creatures with different powers. But it's surprisingly easy to get the card off of Hideaway in this. There's lots of just sort of 2 different card combinations. You could go turn 1 Clockwork Drawbridge, turn 2 Resolute Reinforcements, turn 3 Play the Cage, activate it on one of the 1/1s, and now you have 3 different creatures with different power. Warden of the Inner Sky would also work, probably even better than the Drawbridge. Turn 1 Warden, turn 2 Resolute Reinforcements, tap them all, put a +1/+1 counter on it. Turn 3 Play the Cage, tap them again to put a +1/+1 counter on the Warden, so now it's got 3 power, and tap the Cage to make one of the tokens 2 power, so now you have a 1 power, 2 power, 3 power. And just go off that. Jadar also creates 2/2, and it is a 1/1, so you could use that as well to create different powers. This card just seems very easy to trigger the Hideaway ability, and so you could go, I don't know, turn 3 Emrakul if you wanted to. If you got lucky, in a tally and standard, something big. I think this card is definitely going to see some play. A lot of combo potential and just value potential. How kind of big you want to go with this. We'll see, but yeah, definitely excited to build around this one. Okay, we've got the Bristle Bud Farmer, which is 4 mana for a plant druid, 5/5 trample. And it enters the battlefield, you create 2 food tokens. When it attacks, you can sacrifice a food. If you do, mill 3 cards. You put a permanent card from among them into your hand. So when I thought about this guy, I thought, well, this would be a nice curve into Ginny Fey. If you played Ginny Fey on 3 and then this on 4, both those food tokens you could create into cat or dog tokens and attack right away with the cat ones. It's also just a big body 5/5 trample is nothing to scoff at, and you want to get this attack trigger. So something that would give it haste is kind of nice, like Reckless Stormseeker would curve into this nicely. So you could play it and get the attack trigger right away, mill 3 and get a permanent back, essentially just drawing a card. It kind of works with Insidious Roots too. I don't know if this would go into that deck, but for a few reasons. One, it is a plant, so it gets boosted by that. So you could, if you had this Insidious Roots out and you attack, its mill trigger would mill, and then if you put a creature back from your graveyard into your hand, it would trigger and then put a +1, give you the plant +1/+1 counter on all plants, which it itself is a plant, so then it would boost it up to a 6/6. So there's some synergy there. Not sure if you'd want to play it in a Roots deck, but I thought that was kind of cute. All right, we've got the Gamble of Greed, which is a 4 mana enchantment. When it enters the battlefield, draw 3 cards, gain 6 life, and create 3/1 black bat creature tokens with flying. And at the beginning of your end step, discard a card, lose 2 life, sacrifice a creature. When it leaves the battlefield, discard 3 cards, lose 6 life, sacrifice 3 creatures. So you really want to donate this card, give it to your opponent. And in standard, there's 2 ways that I thought of. Maybe there's more ways that I'm not aware of. A while back, I maybe a few weeks now, actually, I made this Coveted Falcon deck with Archfiend of Dross, where you wanted to donate that. So I could see Gamble of Greed going into that kind of deck. So you really want to just get this card and then donate it to your opponent so they get the triggers of the beginning of the end step. And if you have any way to remove it, then that would also trigger that for your opponent. Shifting Gift is a new card from Outlaws of Thunder Junction, which can let you exchange it if your opponent has an enchantment. So maybe that's possible. So yeah, those are the 2 ways I could think of to donate it. You really don't want to sacrifice it yourself, because then you get this final trigger. So donating it is really the best way to kind of take advantage of this. I mean, maybe there's a deck where you actually kind of want to sacrifice your creatures and discard your cards, and in that case, the sort of end step trigger is not a downside. So you could also build a deck with that in mind. But yeah, let me know if you have any other ideas for this in the comments. Okay, we've got the Harvester of Misery, 5 mana for a 5/4 menace. When it enters the battlefield, other creatures get -2/2 until end of turn. And you can pay 2 to discard it, and target creature gets -2/2 until end of turn. Pretty strong card, flexible, a removal spell on 2, and then a pretty nice body with a Wrath effect. for just 5 mana. This works pretty well with Massacre Girl, the new Massacre Girl. You could, draw a lot of cards from either ability because they're minus effects, or just in a Reanimator deck. Turn 2, kill your guy, and then turn 4, bring it back, kill all your guys again. Seems pretty strong to use in any sort of Reanimator deck. Maybe even in Living End. So I don't know, in Modern, possibility. All right, next up we've got this card seems sweet. The Generous Plunderer. We've got 2 mana for a 2/2 menace. Human Rogue. At the beginning of your upkeep, you can create a treasure token. When you do, target opponent creates a tapped treasure token. Whenever it attacks, deals damage to defending player equal to the number of artifacts they control. There's a lot of uses for this card, I think, which are pretty exciting. I don't know exactly how competitive it is, but I think it's going to see some play. First thing I thought of was like Get Lost, because that gives your opponent 2 more map tokens, and then so you do 2 additional damage to them when this guy attacks. You've also got Kemble, which when you are giving them a tap treasure token, you yourself will get another token too, and then trigger the Kemble again. And it triggers when you get the first treasure token as well. So a lot of synergy there. That would be a pretty cool combination. You've also got Anzareg's Rampage. That card saw no play, but this kind of works pretty well with it because it gives both players artifacts. And then Ogier I thought was a nice curve because of the second ability, the triggering, doing non-combat damage to a player. If you went turn 2 this guy, then get the treasure on turn 3, use the treasure. So we got 4 mana to play Ogier, attack, do it 4 damage to the opponent. That would be pretty nice curve there. So a lot of uses for this. Let me know in the comments if you can think of any other uses for it, just kind of as a generic ramp card you could, assuming your opponent can't use the treasures as well as you. Is exciting. But yeah, I'm excited to build around this guy for sure. Okay, and last up we've got the Foror Vault, which is a land that taps for colorless. You can also pay 3 and discard a card. Look at the top X cards of your library, where X is the number of artifacts you control. Put one of those cards into your hand and the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. So this is very unique because it's a land that lets you discard a card, which I don't think we've had it for quite a while in Standard. So for any sort of Reanimator deck or deck that uses the graveyard, this is probably an auto include a few of copies, assuming your color requirements are okay. You could even go turn 2 Iron Crag, turn 3 activate this, discard some big guy, and then turn 4 play a reanimation spell on that big guy. And because Iron Crag is a artifact, it would you'd take whatever the top card of your library is. It'd just give you a loot basically. If you have more artifacts in play, it gives you card selection. Basically turn into an impulse, which is pretty strong for a ability on the land. So there's a lot of just artifact tokens, map tokens. Spyglass Siren creates a token. There's a lot of just artifact tokens running around. So this would give you sort of some late game, like, okay, discard my extra land and then look at the top 3 or 4 cards and pick the best one. And that's pretty powerful for a land to be able to do that. So I'm excited to put this into some decks, and certainly would change sort of like how many discard outlets you would need in the deck, and function as both a land and a discard outlet is pretty strong. Cool. So that's all for the big score. I believe this wasn't every card in the big score, but the ones that I felt had the most combo potential. And that is it for the Outlaws of Thunder Junction spoilers. I think we have the entire full set. Let me know if you're curious, if you want to go over any of the bonus sheets at all. Those are just going to kind of be there mostly for historic or timeless. But yeah, I'm going to be building a whole bunch of new decks in the next couple of weeks. And then when the set drops on the 16th, I'll be playing a bunch of them, recording them. And yeah, let me know what you're most excited about Outlaws of Thunder Junction, the big score. Which decks are you building? Which combos do you think have the most potential? Anything that I missed in this whole reviews of the different combos in the set? Let me know in the comments. And as always, if you can like, subscribe, I really appreciate it. It really helps out the channel, helps me out a bunch, and just appreciate you guys for watching and supporting the channel so much these last couple months that I've been making videos. It means a lot to me. So hope you have a wonderful day, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.